Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you for that lovely introduction. You're going to have to forgive me because I came down with a really bad cold this morning, so I might be coughing and splurting a couple of times. But the good thing about that, it means that I can do less talking and that I'll ask you to do some talking as well. So if anybody has heard me speak in person, they know that I'm not a fan of just monologue. I think dialogue is far more important, so both of us can be talking, and I think you learn a lot more when I ask you questions and you have to think for yourselves. So today's session is going to be all about questions, asking you questions and seeing where you are and what your understanding is, and there's no right or wrong answers. So I want you guys to feel free to just have an open dialogue and conversation with me, and then I think hopefully we will get a lot more out of it. So the last couple of days have been really good. I've spent a few days in Sydney, and I was able to run a course that we've developed called the Awaken the Guru Within Masterclass, and we just ran that over the weekend, and we had some 80 people from all over Australia, from Singapore, from New Zealand, all parts of Australia, and not just Punjabis or Sikhs, but people from all sorts of backgrounds. And so it's really exciting for me to be here, so I really want to thank you all for welcoming me here. The first thing I want to say is, how many of you have one of these? Usually in a lecture you get told to switch them off and put them away. I'm going to tell you the opposite. I want all of you to take them out. I want all of you to open any notepad app or any writing app and actually take some notes down. Yeah? Because you learn a lot more when you start processing what is being said. You can do it on pen and paper as well. Better still, if you can't find a notepad app, go into WhatsApp, scroll down to the person who should have been here but didn't turn up, write all your notes to them, and at the end of the lecture press send. So maybe they'll come tomorrow. Okay?
The talk you had in Sydney, the workshop, will that be online for other people to watch?
So that is currently a full 2-day course. So it's not really possible to break that up into just talks, because what that course involves is a lot of group learning, and there are also workbooks and things involved. So it's difficult to transfer that into online, but we are working on developing that as an online course. So hopefully later on this year it'll be an online course where the videos and the questions and things that are part of that whole course can actually be delivered. But it won't just be on YouTube then, it'll be on a course platform rather than on YouTube. Okay, so today's session, as you can see from the title, we've been talking about a lot of different things on our YouTube channel, but I believe today's question is going to be addressing what is the fundamental question of our age, especially when it comes to our teenagers and youngsters. And that is the question, does God still have any relevance in my life? Does religion in today's day and age still apply? And then more specifically, we're going to be looking at the Sikh tradition and the Sikh religion. Does it apply? The reason I think it's a really important question is because a lot of people are coming up to me and saying, I don't know what answers to give when youngsters and teenagers are asking me these questions. And the reason we don't have answers is because we haven't had the opportunity to reflect on ourselves, how we feel about this, what we think about it. So the purpose of this session is that we have a dialogue on what we think we're doing when it comes to God and religion, why we do it, so that we can have answers for people. So, the first thing I want you to write down in your notes, if you associate with the Sikh tradition or the Sikh religion, then you want to apply this question to the Sikh religion. If you see yourself as spiritual or associate with any spiritual or religious tradition, I want you to first answer this question. Why am I a Sikh? Write that question down and take a minute to just think about, why am I a Sikh? A lot of the time, the kind of questions that we get asked about is, who is a Sikh? What does a Sikh look like? What do they do? What can they do? What can't they do? Rarely do we get asked this question, why am I a Sikh? So have a little thought and then fire some answers back at me. And if we need to, we've got a roaming mic for any sort of longer conversations. Why are you practicing, following, or associating with the Sikh tradition or any spiritual or religious tradition that you affiliate with? It's not that easy a question, actually. It's a bit difficult. Why am I?
So if I were to continue about why I'm a learner, I'm a disciple, because discipleship is important to reach the goal
Good.
of liberation.
Liberation, okay? Okay, so I want to learn so that I can reach the goal. The goal is liberation. Okay, I think in tomorrow's session we'll try and expand on what that means.
I came from a non-Sikh or non-Punjabi background, and I started to practice or do some Sikh practices, and before that I had done other kinds of spiritual practices. And with each time I had what I felt like connected to something inside that was some kind of respite or sense of fulfillment, or just some kind of state that I didn't understand, but I had the experience. But the experience was very short and would close up, and then I would just be stuck in my own mind again.
Okay.
But when I started to do Sikh practices and come into Sikhism, I found that what I had been experiencing by virtue of either taking like a substance or something else, I could have just by virtue of singing kirtan or praying or meditating. And for me, I found that it was quite empowering because it meant that I could kind of do it myself in a sense, and the guidance is there, and it's not like a kind of a finite kind of thing, like a dead end kind of thing. It just seems to get more progressive the more I practice. And so I said, okay, this seems to work really well.
So it's based on your own experience, you experience things, and then you were able to move into a tradition which allowed you to kind of experience them a lot more.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you very much. So, any more? There should, in theory, be all hands up. I just want to give somebody else an opportunity. In theory, there should be all hands up, right? In theory. But it starts to be quite a difficult question.
Something very basic. I need someone to take care of me. My Guru takes care of me. Yes, sir.
I need someone to
Take care of me.
take care
My
of
Guru
me.
takes care of me. My Guru takes care
My
of me.
Guru takes care of me. Okay, interesting.
I'm from a Sikh family, but I'm spiritual. I believe I'm spiritual, and I believe in all religions.
Yes.
And I think if you're spiritual, doesn't matter which religion you belong to, because you see God in yourself and in others.
Okay.
So the ultimate aim is to really practice seeing God in others.
See God. Okay. One more, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you.
Just at the back there, yes.
Hello. Yeah, I'm like born in a Sikh family.
Yeah.
I was practicing Sikhism, but I find it's really hard. I'm still learning, but the goal to practicing Sikhism basically is to get rid of suffering, everyday suffering, or maybe loneliness when you find nothing else to do and you can't spend time with yourself.
Yes.
And I think the religion had answers, and they have the ability to make you free from suffering or.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. So very interesting and varied answers.
To find out my existence on this planet.
To find out my existence on this planet. So, thank you all for sharing that. That's very interesting. And just from this room, you can see that actually the reasons are quite varied. And interestingly, and I don't know if it's because some of you guys have been watching my videos, but interestingly, the answers are quite sophisticated. A lot of the times, the answers that we get are a little bit more simplistic than that. I want to connect with God. Yeah, whatever that means. I was born into a Sikh religion. It tells me how to be a good person. I'm hoping for some sort of reward when I die. Yeah, let's be honest. And while those are the sort of the common answers that we tend to get, I don't believe that this is what the Sikh tradition is trying to do for you. I don't think that's why Guru Nanak Dev Ji came. And I think some of the answers that we've been getting in this room seems to be a little bit more akin to what it is that we're trying to do. And it's important to just try and break that open a little bit and see where we're going with this. So, now here's another question. Imagine Guru Nanak Dev Ji and Bhai Mardana in the heart of Melbourne's shopping district, and they've set up a stall and they want to talk about Sikhi. Do you think Guru Nanak Dev Ji would be going around and handing out leaflets and saying, "Hi, I'd just like to spend a couple of minutes explaining to you why I'm wearing a turban and why I've got the 5Ks"?
No.
It's an open question. Do you think Guru Nanak and Bhai Mardana today, heart of Melbourne's shopping district, going around handing out leaflets and saying, "Hi, can I have 5 minutes of your time? I'd like to tie a turban on your head"? No? Would Guru Nanak Dev Ji walk around and say, "I'd really like to give you a leaflet about the Sikhs and why I wear a turban. I'd like you to know why I wear a turban"? No?
He lived by example.
What if he was to be standing there and talking to people? What might he be talking about? If Guru Nanak Dev Ji was out there doing some sort of sharing about and preaching or whatever you want to call it, what kinds of things might Guru Nanak say, "Have you got 5 minutes? I'd like to talk to you about..." About?
Way of life.
A way of life. Humanity. Truth.
Service.
Who's
Service.
service.
Worship that Almighty which is one.
About Almighty, oneness,
One God.
one God.
Telling his three principles, kirt karo, naam japo, one.
So good values. Yeah.
Asking people about their own lives.
Asking people about their own lives. Stop right there. Straight away, why do we do something different then? Why are we going around saying, "I'd like to tell you about my 5Ks"?
Because the message from our leaders or people who are running our current, like the people, like the Pope or whatever, or the community.
Yeah, right.
The emphasis is on the wrong things, or rather on the identity.
But they're not telling us to do it.
No, they're not.
But there is an emphasis on that. Do you see? I'm not actually giving you answers here.
They
I'm
make
trying
more
to.
noise about that.
Say again?
They make more noise about the identity, and
Okay.
they use it to actually create disparity between the Sikhs who don't have.
That's a very interesting point. They make more emphasis on the identity. Now, at no point are you going to hear me say, "Don't do that." At no point are you going to hear me say, "It's not important to tell people about who we are and our identity." But I just asked you a very interesting question. Would you imagine Guru Nanak would just do that, or would he have something more interesting to say? And you've all agreed he'd have something more interesting to talk to you about. Then why don't we? Let me give you another example. One of my pet peeves. Anytime, I don't know if this is the case here, anytime Sikhi is mentioned in mainstream media, especially Amritsar, especially the Golden Temple, what is the number one fact that you hear about the Golden Temple? Hi, I'm here visiting the city of Amritsar, and I am going to be going to the Golden Temple. In the Golden Temple, they serve langar, they feed 100,000 people a day. Is that the most important thing about Harmandir Sahib?
No.
No. Yet, time and time again, every time, without fail, Amritsar is mentioned as the place where they serve 100,000 meals.
But wouldn't that be because it's foreign to the foreigner, a non-Sikh? For them it's something that they don't practice in their religion, something new, and to them it's something really amazing?
It is amazing. Is that the most important first fact that you would like to give about the Sikh tradition?
But that's not given by a Sikh, but that's probably given by a non-Sikh.
Right. That's a really good point. I'll argue that. The fact that it comes again and again and again, I am willing to bet when you start talking about Amritsar, that's the first thing we're going to start saying as well. Because when you tell a lie 100,000 times, it becomes a truth. And I'm not saying that they're not feeding 100,000 people, but it is a lie that that is the most important and primary fact that we need to state about Amritsar.
That is one of the principles.
It's just one of them. It's not the first one. Yeah? And if we are going to say that kind of thing, let's be honest. Why in the town where they feed 100,000 people a day are there beggars outside? What is a tourist going to see? Oh, you feed... So, are they feeding 100,000 people a day, or are they feeding 100,000 tourists a day? Please bear in mind, I'm not questioning this tradition. I'm not questioning langar. I'm not questioning the validity and the value of the langar. And it is an amazing fact. But what have we reduced Sikhi down to? Langar, turban, kesh, kirpan. What I'm trying to ask you is, what on earth do we think Sikhi is? If we think it's something amazing, then we should be talking about it in that way. And if we don't know anything more, we're going to end up just talking about these very external things. I don't believe Guru Nanak Dev Ji came on this earth to just do that. I think Guru Nanak Dev Ji was here for something more. What is amazing about Guru Nanak Dev Ji?
The most amazing things I feel is that our Allah Murubai Kudrat ke sab bande ek mein sab na koi Hindu, na koi Musliman, na koi Isai. He was so tolerant of the world and people, and we have stripped the whole thing.
Right. So do you see? We need to start uncovering. These are the kinds of things that our youth are questioning. Why do I have to wear this? What's the point of it? And unfortunately, we, or certainly the generation above us, came from a tradition that said, don't ask any questions. And we, or certainly the generation above us, grew up with this idea, we just don't ask any questions. That's just the way it's done. That's fine. That's how it's been going on for hundreds of years. Unfortunately, that answer will not hold up for the younger generation. It just doesn't work anymore. So we need to have answers. We are now being forced to ask some fundamental questions about who on earth are we? What are we about? And let's be even more honest about this. Why are people asking questions about our faith? Why are people questioning, I'm not sure if I want to join this one. There's quite a few different options. I quite like the Buddhists. They don't have to do anything, but they seem to be really happy. Yeah? If you gave most youngsters the choice, which religion sounds like the best one? Buddhism. We have to ask why. Why do they find that one great? What is it that they're afraid of with ours? Let's be honest, let's talk about it. Image. Identity. Language.
I think there are too many rules.
Too many rules.
So then Buddhism has equal number of rules, but they're not obvious in the forefront.
That's not the first thing that they talk about.
That's the issue. It is a harder religion.
It is very hard. There's a lot, yeah. It's a very disciplined tradition. In fact, I'm sure the Buddhists are probably looking at the Western world and saying, you guys are diluting a very specific tradition. But let's not talk about that. Let's actually figure out what is the public perception of that tradition. It's easy and it makes you smile and it's great and it's not a threat to me in any way. In fact, it can only benefit my life. Why isn't Sikhi being talked about in that way?
I was going to say probably because there's less emphasis on belief and more emphasis on it's like a meditation practice.
I'm going to add to that. There's not as much emphasis on belief, but on practice, and I believe there's less emphasis on identity. Would you say so? You'd probably know more than I would. On appearance and rules.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the world thinks mindfulness has come through Buddhism, and it's been made so by the psychologists and social workers who research on it. But
Can we get internet on this?
mindfulness is a practice that many Indian religions have done.
No? Okay.
And we have it. It's in our Barney. But the way we actually talk about it, we talk, but we don't emphasize the importance of the samana and the importance of actually finding peace and focus.
Can you give me a Google search? Right, you're absolutely right. We have it all, don't we? Yeah, in our tradition, it's all there. How do we talk about it? If Sikhi has a particular perception in the world, whose fault is it? The Sikhs' fault? Or you can be like, oh, nobody studied it and they've got us all wrong.
Marketing department.
The marketing department. PR, the marketing of Buddhism is fantastic. I'll give you an example, and this is where I'm currently reading a book called The Variety of Religious Experiences, William James. He is a psychologist, American psychologist, around the 1890s, something like that sort of day. In that book, he's openly talking to a crowd about different religions, and he talks about Buddhism. Buddhist, oh, the Buddha does this and Christ does that. And what really struck me, in 1890, he's openly talking about Buddha to a crowd like they already know who he is. In 1890 in America. And I'm like, how come Buddha was being talked about in America in 1890? And till today, nobody talks about Nanak.
There were Chinese in 1890 in America.
There were Sikhs in 1890 in America. We all know the oldest gurdwaras. You go anywhere. I go to Vancouver and they say, oh, we have the oldest gurdwara built here in 1904. I don't know exactly. We've been there.
And there was the American people who made it more known about our religion than the Sikhs. There was an American person who was actually historically helping them.
I want to run a really interesting, I wasn't planning on doing it, but I want to do a very simple search. Maybe if you could do just a clone desktop or something? Rather than a, yes, okay. Yeah, either way. Right click and then just change the, I hope this is just starting to now whet your appetite as to what on earth is going on here, okay? This is, I hope you get a point of this. I'm going to start with an extreme example. Can you all see this stuff?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm doing a Google search, images of Islam. Yeah? What do you see?
The Kaaba.
Let's be more specific. What are you seeing?
Peace.
Buildings, mosques. Yeah?
They are insignias.
Peaceful.
Yes. Peace. Okay. Okay. And
Symbols.
and stuff like this. This one here, like some people bowing, praying, that sort of stuff. Okay? Okay. What are we seeing?
Praying, community,
Community,
dress code,
dress code. What else?
prayers,
Prayers and dress code and community. Okay. Sorry again?
Diversity.
Oh, interesting. Are you seeing diversity?
Yeah, different communities.
within
Different communities. Oh, like maybe an image like here. Like, look at all these varieties of Muslims. Interesting.
The Chinese.
The Chinese Muslims, okay.
More cohesive as a group.
Cohesive.
Yeah, they attend most whether they come from different places.
Okay, let's do this one. Images of Christians. What do we see? Cross, congregation, community, Jesus, violence, interesting, yeah.
diversity, violence,
Yeah, some sort of protests going on. Yeah, some celebrities.
wine, wine as well,
What was the last one?
wine,
Wine, so part of their practices, their religious practice. Okay. What do you see?
Similar.
Buddha, Dalai Lama, monks. Okay, let's
their
see if I can.
temples, Ganesh,
Images of Buddhists. What do you see? What are they doing? They're all meditating, right? What are they wearing? They're all wearing the meditation stuff. Interestingly, you don't see common Buddhists. You see the monks. Okay? Now's in something interesting.
oh,
Oh,
you
wrong
missing
spelling.
H,
It's the wrong spelling. Images of Sikhs. Okay, what do we see? Swords. Keep going.
turbans,
Turbans. Some gurus.
diversity, golden temple,
More men.
Yes, a lot of men. Orange. What are the men doing? Service. No, let's go back to the first couple of. What are the men doing?
Their gear is more as if they're going for war.
Okay. Are they? Oh yeah, one of them.
because these days there are many professional photographers in Sikh.
Okay. This is what the world sees. I've gone into Google Images. That is an example of what the world sees when they talk about each religion. What do they see about Sikhs? Let's just. What impression can we say the world has about Sikhs if we use that as a rough guide? What our kids see.
We've got more here.
We've got a couple. Yeah, we've got some. Yeah, family.
We've got you.
Yeah. Generally. Yeah. Again, no criticism. What does the world see? Okay? When I first did this exercise, I was fascinated. What did the world see with Buddhists? What were they doing?
Meditation.
They were all meditating. Yeah? What is the number one out of the 3 rules or practices or values of the Sikh tradition? Number 1 out of the 3 pillars of Sikhi is?
Naam.
Where's the images of that?
Naam Japo.
Naam Japo. Where's the photos of that? Girt Karo. Yeah, there's a little bit of serving in the military and all this kind of thing. Vanshako. Where's the images of that?
And the seva.
Seva. Where's the images of that?
That's because
Let's assume Google's pretty good. Yeah, we're all using it. Google is a good starting point. And if you wanted to, you can dig deeper. But I'm taking a step back.
but these images are mainly from India.
Okay,
Sikhs
good,
are
good.
all over the world. They do different things in different places.
Brilliant. But what does the world see? What do our kids see?
Yeah.
An Indian tradition.
These images tells
us more about the Sikhs, which was after Guru Nanak Dev Ji. These images lack the information that Guru Nanak Dev Ji used to spread in his time.
This is an image search of what is the world today. What is this?
Somewhat incomplete.
Right? It is incomplete. It's massively incomplete.
It depends on how the Google made its algorithm. Basically, it's for the wider number of people they use. Because being a Sikh, our number is very less. Google algorithm is designed on a different way, not to represent
Google's algorithm is based on the most popular websites. Yeah. Either we make them popular or people make them popular. So we're going to have stuff like SikhNet, SikhiWiki,
why there is a need to make it popular? What's the question is, why there is a need to make it popular? Make it more popular. Is this our aim?
No, so my question is...
Sorry, Satpal, just to add to this is, I think where Satpal is.
Yes.
Where Satpal is taking us is, if you have a 10-year child in your house, right, what he or she sees in his parents and grandparents. Does he see Naam Japo as a value in a common everyday family? Forget Google for a second. We look at our own families. Do our children see us meditating every day? Do our children see their parents, grandparents, maternal, paternal, doing some sort of a community service on a daily, weekly, monthly, annually basis? Do they, or they talk about cash job came in any and the tax came in the jump?
It's a good summary, thank you. Right?
So that's Google, but this is the reality.
This is the reality of it. Now let's take a step
I
back.
think I'm going to add something. You're right. Maybe the parents at present here in Australia or outside may not have been doing that. But many parents who went and left their old country, I take Singapore and Malaysia, I'm one of the people who has come up in a family where going to Gurdwara was a norm. And we went to Gurdwara, yes, we had langar there, but we could not allow to bring home. If you're at home and you don't go to Gurdwara, we'll get you food. But it's the Gurdwara where you're going to get langar, prashad, and you have to go there on a regular basis and learn.
So this isn't an attack on any one particular family or anything like that.
Right.
I think for me it's a visual way of trying to get us to wake up to what is the world's impression of us and who is responsible for the world's impression of us, and ultimately what is our impression of us. So let me give you a definition of the word religion. Because now think about everything that I'm saying through the eyes of 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds. You all have people in your lives who are like, Mom, Dad, I don't know if this works for me, this doesn't make any sense for me. Yep. And let's not beat around the bush. I've been very lucky to go and spend time with lots of different groups of people from all over the world. One of the things I've seen, especially when I sit down and do talks with sort of youngsters, teenagers, and things like that. Sometimes I do talks with teenagers and I say, can all the parents leave the room? Let's have an honest conversation. I start my conversation with them and I say, in this room of young teenagers, let's be honest, how many of you call yourselves atheists? I've generalized over 50% of children at Sikh camps, they're there at the Sikh camp because their parents have sent them, will identify with and say, I'm an atheist. And most of them are around the age of 13 upwards. As a parent, that's an extremely worrying statistic, if we want to call that a statistic. I call it a Satpal says. Yeah, because it's just a little anecdote of mine, but that's what I've observed. If you take that as a generalization, that by the age of 13, most Sikh teenagers will conclude that there is no God. Sikhism is a religion for my parents or some people in India, but it's not really for me. I don't believe or associate with this religion. you now have an uphill struggle to try and convince them. The worrying thing as a parent is, at what point do you start teaching them that so that by the age of 13 they don't come to that conclusion? That's very worrying. My children are 7 and 9. So even if I start today, assuming I've taught them nothing till now, my 9-year-old has 4 years to really love this tradition and understand it and really say, yup, this is mine, before him and his mates come to the conclusion, nah, I don't believe in this stuff. 13, and these are all of our children. Right? We don't have a lot of time. And one of the biggest problems I have is the outsourcing of Sikh education. Yeah? There used to be a time about 10, 15 years ago, you got the Indian guy to do everything, right? You outsource to India to get him to do everything. What's happening now is youth pracharaks, anybody who can string a sentence together in English, come, educate our children. You teach our children. And you know what my response is? No, I'm not going to teach the children. I want to teach the parents. Because we have got into a disease called Bachyan nu Sikhao. Come and teach the children. You know what that means? Sanu to pata? We know Sikhi. Bachyan nu Sikhao. Go and teach the children. We know our Sikhi. We've been learning Sikhi since day one.
It's being lazy, actually.
So you're outsourcing it. Yeah, it's good, gives me something to do, right? But I'm reminded, back in the UK, we used to have this advert for a charity, and it said, give a man a fish, and he can feed his family for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he can feed his family for a lifetime. Yeah, I don't know what is the fish and what is the man in that analogy compared to what I'm talking about, but you get the idea. Are we just going to say, you, come and talk to my children, or are we going to say, I need to learn how to speak to my children about this stuff, and there's only one way that you're going to be able to communicate to your children, you've got to figure this stuff out for yourself. And I was very lucky that I was staying in Sydney with family members, so my nieces and nephews, young 13, 15-year-olds, right up till about yesterday, we were having fascinating conversations. Is there a God? Why do we need to do this? How do we make life better? Isn't the purpose of life to make everything good? Fascinating conversations from my young niece, 15 years old. Yeah? And the parents were really, really encouraged that our children are actually interested. If you give them an opportunity, they want to know. But they want to know, they want to have these conversations from people that they trust in a language that they understand. That has to be you. It can't just be people like me. Yeah? The onus has to go back on everyone. Now the question is, how are we going to get to that position? Let me give you a definition of the word religion. You open a dictionary and you look up the definition of the word religion. It says, religion is a set of beliefs about the nature of the universe, especially involving ritual practices and the worship of a superhuman controlling power. Think about that. It's a set of beliefs about the universe. It's not a science, there's no facts in it, there's just beliefs. Especially involving ritual practices. This is just from any standard dictionary. Ritual practices involving worship of a superhuman controlling power. If I read that, I'd run a mile. You want to sell me that? A set of beliefs and rituals about some superhuman controller? No thanks. What on earth do we have to give our young generations? We can't even tell them, you should really practice this, because when you grow old, Babaji, you know, the one with the photo, the one that we madhate before we walk out to go to school, that Babaji will give you good stuff. Right? Because you know what they say? They say, Mum, Dad, my friends don't believe in this Babaji and they get better exam grades than me. Or they just passed their test, or they just got into the latest college or university, or they just went for a job interview and got a great job. And they did all sorts of weird and wonderful things when they were in school. I know because I saw them. I was there. Why did you stop me from having all my fun? Because you told me Babaji was going to give me good stuff if I did if I was a good person. Sounds familiar, right? What are we selling them? We can't even tell them that religion will make you happy. It's good for you. It's food for the soul. They'll say, you know what, Mum? I can take a picture of me right now, put it on Instagram, and 50 people will tell me that they like me. That happiness takes about 10 seconds. Your happiness takes ages. What have we got to sell them?
It's a fleeting happiness.
Say again?
It's a fleeting happiness, so we have.
Try and say that to a 13-year-old.
I think it can be. I think we can't underestimate them. They can be quite receptive if we can put it in the right words.
Yeah. But we have to have clarity of thought in order to be able to do that. Do we have that? Do you have that? Some. Not all of us. So, the reason I love that definition of religion is it starts with a very interesting word. A set of beliefs. You know, I'm one of these people, I like to really study the meanings of words. So then I went in and said, what is the dictionary definition of the word belief? Belief says to put your faith in something that you don't know to be true. To put your faith in something that you don't know to be true. So, my 7-year-old just lost his 5th tooth. Daddy, I lost my tooth. What does he do with his tooth? I don't know if you guys do it here. Right? I put it under the pillow and the tooth fairy. So, what he's saying is, I believe in the tooth fairy. That means, I don't know if the tooth fairy exists, but I believe the tooth fairy exists. I can say, I don't know if aliens exist, but I believe that aliens exist. My question to you is that what Guru Nanak felt about God? I don't know if God exists, but I believe that God exists, and I think you should believe it too. Did he believe in God? Yes? No?
He knew God.
He knew God. I would categorically argue that Guru Nanak did not believe in God. Guru Nanak Dev Ji knew God, and there's a world of difference. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, interestingly and very proudly, we talk about this, Musliman da Fakir, Peer, Hindu da Fakir, right? He's the Guru, he was loved by everyone. The Muslims loved him. He went to the Muslims and they said, yeah, he's one of us. They went to the Hindus and he said, yes, he's one of us. He even went to the Buddhists. And in certain places in Nepal and places they have shrines to Guru Nanak, Lama Nanak, Rinpoche Nanak. Yeah? What was Guru Nanak Dev Ji doing or saying that anywhere he went, people said, I accept what you're saying. Not just I accept what you're saying, I will bow down to you as the master of my tradition. Not I want to leave my tradition to join your tradition, because we know, and we quite proudly say, Guru Nanak Dev Ji didn't tell you to leave your tradition. He said, if you're going to be a Hindu, be a really good Hindu. If you're going to be a Muslim, be a really good Muslim. Do it properly. What was he teaching?
Truth.
The truth? What have the Sikhs done? Are we saying the same thing as the person that we claim to follow, whose teachings we claim to follow? Can you go and have a conversation with a Muslim, Christian, a Buddhist, a Hindu, in such a way that they turn around and say, you make me understand my tradition better? If not, are we followers of Guru Nanak? Who did that? Who did exactly that? Guru Nanak Dev Ji, when you look into how the contemporaries of Guru Nanak talked about him, Bhai Gurdas Ji and people like that, they say Guru Nanak came to spread dharam. Very interesting word, dharam. Say again?
Righteousness.
Righteousness. Okay? Not a bad word. It's not a bad fit for this word dharam. But more often than not, what we've translated the word dharam to is religion. Religion is a model of segregating people into groups. One of the most fascinating things that has happened is that we have been convinced that we are a religion. And I'll tell you a little bit of a fun fact about how that happened. It was done by the people from where I'm from, the British. One of the most important things that the British did when they took over India is they did what is called a survey, a census. They wanted to know, we now own this land, go and find out about what the people of this land are. How many are there? Where do they live? What do they do? What do they eat? What do they drink? What do they believe? So, along comes Mr. British and says to Mr. Indian, what religion are you? And one of the first surveys, the census that was done in India around the 1880s, is still available for you to view online on census records. And in there, the question of religion, so the guy who was going around asking people about religion, he says, of all the questions in the census, the hardest questions that the Indians seem to be able to not answer is the question of religion. He says, the hardest question that the Indians are not able to answer is what religion they are. You know what that says? We didn't identify ourselves by our religion prior to the British coming along. So what you had was a whole range of different answers. And what the Indians interpreted at that time was, who do you follow? So we had Nanak Panthis, we had Gobind Shahis, we had Kabir Panthis. So people were just like, who do you believe in? I think the village elder says that we believe in this guy, right? And so the census guys are looking at it and saying, these guys have no idea who they are. They have no idea who they are. Great, great, because now we can tell them who they are. There are books that are still available, written by priests at the time, saying our mission is to evangelize the Khalsa. Evangelize. The Khalsa are in disarray. They don't have a leader anymore. The Maharaja Ranjit Singh has died. They're all confused. We can go in and evangelize them. We can convert them to Christians easily like that. And you know what we've done today? We have become that evangelized Sikh. So, when Guru Nanak Dev Ji comes to the world, he has this beautiful declaration, Ik Oankar. And when we translate that into English, there is one God. Oankar and God, do they mean the same thing? I would argue they don't. And even today, when we say the word Vaheguru, what image comes in your mind? What image comes into your mind with the word Vaheguru? The Gurus, okay? Gurus, something that looks like a guru, turbans and beards. But Vaheguru, when you say the word Vaheguru, what image pops in your head? No image? Gurbani? A man? With a beard? Consciousness. The word Vaheguru spelled out in Punjabi, Shabad? Meditation. But when we talk to...
Surprising. Like Vaheguru. So if you break the word Vaheguru, what have you done? Or what the things have done to me? Vaheguru.
Okay, questioning.
Yes.
Okay.
More statement than question. Vaheguru.
Yeah.
The great one.
Wonderful.
Phrase of so,
Allahu Akbar.
we don't even in this room have a single idea or definition of what this is. When the word God is said, what image comes in your head?
Nothing.
Huh?
Nothing. It's
Nothing?
Man up in the clouds, sitting in the clouds.
A man in the clouds? That's the image that comes in my head, I'll be honest.
I mean, he's supposed to be something no one has ever seen.
Which he?
He or she. in this era, he or she.
Do you see how inconsistent we are?
It's just basically a praise of Almighty.
What is Almighty? Something up there. It's difficult to describe. It's difficult to describe. So we have a tradition that we spend all of our time praising something that we can't talk about, we can't define, we don't even know what it is.
But isn't that
Maybe I'm playing devil's advocate here, but maybe there's a reason for that.
Isn't that the same for all religions? We're talking about our religion, but in all the Christians, they talk about God, the Son of God. They too can't define God.
Oh, they do.
I mean,
God created man in his own image.
so in that sense, we are the soul, in the soul's image, the higher soul.
So I'm not questioning whether individually we have the ability to talk about it. What I'm trying to demonstrate is that there is this kind of blurriness about it all, confusion, and hopefully that's starting to demonstrate why younger and younger generations are leaving. Did you have a question?
Maybe just connecting to what you might be discussing. The reason for that, in one man's opinion, is because we have not researched, studied our own scriptures properly.
That's a good summary. There you go.
You know,
And that's the crux of it all. We don't know what we're talking about. So I think Guru Nanak Dev Ji came to spread something called Dharam. Now let's see, in Gurbani, one particular verse that tries to describe what Dharam is. Guru Ram Das Ji's Shabad, in Anga number 309 of Guru Granth Sahib. Eh sareer sab dharam hai. This body is the home of Dharam. Jis andar sache ki vich jyot. Your body is the home of this thing called Dharam, within which is the light of permanent truth. The definition of Dharam has now instantly gone from something being out there in one line to right here. Goj ratan vich luk rahe, koi gurmukh seve kade kho. Hidden inside are jewels. There's a hidden jewel, ratans, many jewels. Koi gurmukh. How rare is that Guru-facing one who digs them out? So there is something inside us, a light of divine essence, of permanent truth. Very rare are the people that go in and pull it out. Sab Atma Ram Pachanya, Ta Ik Ravya Ikko Otpo. When they do, they recognize that everything that is inside them, the Atma, Ram, is Sab Pachanya, is everything. I recognize everything as that same internal jyot that's within me. Ik Ravya, Ikko Otpo. There is one everywhere in all directions. Ik Dekhya, Ik Mannaya, Ikko Sunya, Sravan Sarop. He sees this oneness, he knows this oneness, he hears this oneness with his ears. How many of us can say that we have any clue how to do that stuff. That is the definition of the word dharam, or a definition of the word dharam, and we are told Guru Nanak came here to spread dharam. Which dharam are we talking about? We even have this idea that we belong to the Sikh dharam, and you belong to the Hindu dharam, and you belong to the Muslim dharam, and you belong to the Buddhist dharam, and you belong to the Christian dharam. What have we done? We have very nicely put ourselves in a box that says, Mr. British man, we now know which religion we are. Thank you for explaining it to us. Guru Nanak Dev Ji was not talking about religion. And if we have no idea what Guru Nanak Dev Ji was here to spread, then no wonder we're so confused. So let's look a little bit more about dharam. Please.
Before we progress, again, in personal opinion, I would like to share your insights. I think the word dharam is equal to religion is a very new change in the meaning of the word.
Yes.
Coming from an Indian background and relating to Hindu scriptures, the word dharma, right? And you have again Mada dharam, kartavya. So I think original meaning dharam da मैं पूरा जो शब्द पढ़ा उसका मेरे मतलब नहीं पता पर जो नानक देव सॉरी तीसरी पाशे
Guru Ramdas 4.
Sorry, चौथी पाशे जो शब्द है वो कहते हैं तो अंदर धर्म है.
Yes.
So the immediate thing I relate to is my heart. ओदी एक job है, ठीक है? ओदी job वही कर सकता है.
Yes.
ठीक है? My kidneys. I'm taking a literal.
Thank you.
I'm taking a literal example.
That's actually the meaning of the word dharam.
Right?
Yes.
So that duty bound thing, what that cell or that individual or the soul is there, and I
The
think
purpose of that thing at that time, what it means to do.
yeah, that
Yes.
equating that to the word religion, that probably changed only last 50 years.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're absolutely right. The Indian word dharam, and I think I'm just going to elaborate on that for a moment. The Indian word dharam was not related to a set of beliefs or practices. It was an expression of what are you. So for example, a shoemaker's dharam is to make shoes.
So a way of life.
It is their way of life.
To the Indian.
So a farmer's dharam is to be a farmer. It's not as his occupation or his job.
It's related to values. Indian religion believes
Values,
the way
almost your traditions. It's almost a very complex word. Anji.
And I think that dharam is secondary thing for Guru Nanak Dev Ji.
Secondary.
Secondary.
Primary then is
Daya.
Daya, Tor, Dharam, Daya Kapu.
Daya Kapu.
Right. So what is your dharam? What is Guru Nanak's dharam? Guru Nanak's dharam, thank you for sharing that, is both. Yeah, Sagal dharam is Sresht dharam. Yeah, Sukhmani Sahib. Of all the ways of life, maybe is a better word, the best way of life is Har ko Naam. Jap Nirmal Karam. Reciting the divine name, that is the purest of all actions. So now dharam becomes, what do you do with your time? What are you doing with your life? Dharam. And dharam is born out of compassion, but first and foremost is sarir, sab dharam hai. Your body is the starting point, not physical, it is you. Jis andar sache ki vich jyot. There's an inner light that you're here to look for. Now I'm starting to think, possibly this is kind of what Guru Nanak Dev Ji went around talking about. Say, hey, don't worry about me. There's something about you that you don't know about. There's something about you that you don't know about. I want to go into this word dharam a little bit more. One of the most respected dictionaries of Guru Granth Sahib Ji is known as the Mahan Kosh, the Great Dictionary, written by someone called Khan Singh Nabha, about 1900s, 1920s, something like that. It's generally seen as one of the most respected ways to translate most words into common Punjabi. He calls Dharam Pavitr Niyam. The definition of Dharam, Pavitr Niyam, left. Pavitr Niyam, the divine system. The divine system, Pavitr, the pure divine system, the natural law of the universe, maybe we can say. The law of the universe and the individual, because Dharam is within us. It's not just the way that the stars work or the way the planets revolve around the sun. It's not just the cosmology. So he's saying it's like a law of life. Yeah? We can talk about a law of life that we know and we understand quite easily, gravity. We all understand, yeah, no, law of nature. Whether you like it or you don't like it, it's there. Whether you believe in it or you don't believe in it, it's there. Speed of light, whether you believe in it or you don't believe in it, it's there. Guru Nanak Dev Ji is saying, whether you believe in it or you don't believe in it, there's a system. And you have something to do with it. Look at how the language starts becoming quite universal all of a sudden. There's a system, and you have something to do with it, and it has something to do with you. And the system is that inside you and inside everything, there is a jyot. Let's call it a light for now. There is an atma, there's something. Now, in science, they'll say, prove it. We can prove the speed of light, we can prove the speed of sound or gravity, all these kind of things. These are just scientific facts. We can show you, we can demonstrate them. Interestingly, how do we talk about the ancient rishis, sadhus and all that? The best word I ever heard for these people was the ancient meditative scientists. Because guess what? They weren't just meditating all day. The oldest scriptures on the universe are coming from these meditators. The oldest scriptures about the nature of the body is coming from these meditators. They're the ones who wrote the first books in human civilization on medicine. What plants help the body? What does this sun moving in this direction and this planet doing this have effect on you? They were meditating and connecting this whole thing together. So we can almost call them the meditative scientists, because they were working out all of these laws and things like that. But they didn't figure out what the body is by cutting and dissecting it. They figured out what the body and the stars and the relation is by meditating on it. Bhagat Pipaji famously quotes, Jo Brahmande Soi Pinde. What is in the universe is inside you. Jo Khoje So Pawe. Who looks for it will find it. They're talking about a science. Except what this science is, the gurus are saying, of course I can prove it to you. Do you think Guru Nanak Dev Ji got a little bit worried when someone says, prove it? He said, no, I can prove it, but I can't build a machine to show you. This system doesn't require me to create some tools. This requires you to go and look for it, and I'll show you how to look for it. But it's there. Now the question you have to ask yourself is, am I looking for it? Do I know about it? Am I interested in looking for it? And maybe some people will turn around and say, no, I'm not really interested. How I explain this to my kids is that every single one of you is a superhero. And every single one of you has a superpower. But you haven't figured out what your superpower is. And then they say, oh, I want to know. And then they start, oh, maybe I can fly, maybe I'm the strongest person in the world, maybe I can do this. But you have to gauge their interest a little bit. And the reality is, the Guru was saying to you, there is something amazing about you, but you have no idea. But you know who Guru Nanak was? And unfortunately, what we do is we say, oh, but he was a Guru. He was a Guru. That's not for us. That's only for the Gurus. I genuinely don't believe Guru Nanak Dev Ji spent all that effort to teach you something that says, no mate, it's not for you. It's just for you. Yeah? I'm just rubbing your nose in it. Yeah? I'm just telling you to just show you how great I am and how ordinary you are. Or was he saying, I'm nobody, but luckily I found something and I think you should look for it as well. And this is really natural, and that's what Daya is. Compassion kind of works like this. When you watch a great movie, like the best movie you've ever seen, read the best book you've ever read, heard the best piece of music you've ever heard, do you sit at home and say, man, that was really good, but I'm not going to tell anyone about it? You don't, do you? What's the first thing you do? Have you seen that movie? No? You really should watch it. Have you seen that? Have you seen that movie? You really should watch it. That's really good. Yeah? Your first instinct when you experience something of greatness is your desire to share that with others. Why? Because I feel something great. And I think you should feel that great too. That's what Daya is. I found something and my heart is aching that I see Nanak dukhiya sab sansar. Nanak says, I see the whole world as suffering. There's some line, something to the effect of Jo dise so rogi. Everyone I see looks diseased to me. Right? Guru Nanak is saying, I see the world as people suffering. Dukhi and rogi. Suffering, illness. What's the big subject of the world today? Mental health and mental illness. Guru Nanak Dev Ji was saying, I already know that the world is mentally ill. I can see it. I can see it because I can see a solution within myself. Guru Nanak Dev Ji had something that was absolutely crucial to who you are. And what he's saying is not, look guys, I've got something amazing to tell you, but first I can't tell you until you grow your hair, you wake up at a certain time, you learn a different language, you learn to say the right things, do the right things, go do a whole bunch of seva first, and then, if I feel like it, I'll tell you. I don't think he did that. I don't think he said, is that a haircut? You're not ready. Go and put a turban on your head before you come speak to me. I don't think he said that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think so. Are you speaking a foreign language? No, you got to learn my language. What did Guru Nanak Dev Ji do with language? He used the commoner's language. You know, people say you should learn Punjabi. You should learn Punjabi. Very good, learn Punjabi. Why? So that you can read Guru Granth Sahib. I know a lot of people who are very good at Punjabi, they still don't have a clue what Guru Granth Sahib says. And I know people like me who are atrocious at Punjabi. I actually see Guru Granth Sahib Ji as a different language. I'm able to read Gurmukhi, and I'm able to look at certain words and understand it, and I don't speak particularly good Punjabi, I'll be honest. Now, I'm not saying don't learn Punjabi. My wife speaks much better Punjabi than me, and she's able to translate Gurbani much better than I am, so it does help. But that's not the be-all and end-all. Guru Granth Sahib Ji isn't written in Punjabi. It's written in Gurmukhi script, which looks exactly the same. But there's a whole bunch of wonderful languages in there. Yeah? So why are we making restrictions on people? Guru Nanak Dev Ji didn't go to a whole new place and say, there's a language barrier, you need to learn my language. Gurbani's got a whole bunch of different languages. And whatever language you spoke, he said, yep, I'll explain it to you. When Guru Amar Das Ji was questioned by the Hindu Pandits, why is your religious scripture being written in this language? Why are you not writing in Sanskrit? All the greatest Indian spiritual wisdom is written in Sanskrit. Why are you not writing it? Guru Amar Ji's response was beautiful. He said Sanskrit is deep like the ocean. He says this language of the Guru Granth Sahib is like rain. It's for everyone. He's not saying no to Sanskrit. He's just saying my language is for everyone. It showers equally on everyone. Your language is very deep. It's very complicated, very hard. Why aren't we teaching this spiritual wisdom in English? Why isn't there English sermons in the Gurdwara? Why, if I go to France, isn't there sermons in French? Why, when I go to Spain, are the Gurdwaras not teaching in Spanish? I believe in Spain they actually are. I think I might have heard something about that. Yeah, a little bit good, right? But generally, not the case. Punjabi Sikho. What have we done? You cannot complain to your children like it's their fault when there are so many different areas for us to improve on. But I don't want to leave this lecture with you guys saying, oh my God, it's hopeless. We've got no idea. We made so many mistakes. Oh, where do we start? The first step to correcting any mistake is to admit that you've made a mistake and say, okay, let's do something about it. So, my question today is, do we need religion? Is Sikhi still relevant? Do I need God in my life? I feel like it's almost, we're not even ready to talk about that question yet. We've got so many little things to first work out which God, what religion, are we a religion? What should we be doing it? How should we be doing it? And that is going to be the topic for tomorrow. So I hope this is just the starter to whet your appetite as to where and how we might go about approaching this. But I'd like to now turn it to you guys to say, what can we do based on what we've learned today? Because I can talk. I'm pretty good at that. But talking isn't the same as the community together agreeing, maybe we should do this, maybe we can do that. How am I going to start at home? I'll give you a simple example of what I do. At home, when my children are just about to eat, I personally don't get them to say a prayer from Guru Granth Sahib Ji. They do know that one, especially when they go to their Sunday Punjabi and Gurmat classes. Dada data ek hai, right? They learn that one. But at home, I want them to mean it. So I've given them a little prayer in English, because they speak English. And I say thank you to God for food in your language, because I'd rather you mean it every day than mom and dad make me say these funny words that I have no idea what they mean. That's one example of how I do it, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. My interest for my kids is that you understand the message of Sikhi rather than be able to sound like a Sikh and have no idea what the message of Sikhi is. So I want you, if you're going to say thank you to God, say it like you mean it in your own words. It doesn't matter that you don't say it in this particular set of words. That's one example. What else can we do? What can we do to change public perception?
I think we need to talk to
Should we get the mic?
people who run the Gurdwara, that we have a session within our congregation where everybody can understand the language. It can be English or whatever language is spoken in that country.
Once a week, English parcha.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You know, I mean, a common language where most people understand it, so that there's better understanding of what we are actually talking and learning.
The problem is there is actual resistance towards teaching in English. Some, I'll give you an example. I was doing an interview on one of the Sikh channels in the UK. Sitting for an hour, being interviewed about stuff like this, about what my views are on this and that, the other. And we said, now it's time for live calls. One of the calls that came in was, "Tusi Punjabi ch kyun nahi gal karde?" The person on the other end of the phone says, "These people talking, tell them to say the whole Uda in Punjabi." Live on air. So there is resistance to this sort of stuff.
That's right. I truly praise काफी दिनों में था तो पहले भी brother come to you. The kids brought up in England, maybe 4th, 5th generation, if not more. Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines. कभी मलेशिया च नहीं प्रचार होया गुरुद्वारा ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਲਾਇਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰ ਹੋਇਆ ਤੇ ਐਂਡ ਇੱਥੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਆ ਕੇ ਆਸਟ੍ਰੇਲੀਆ ਚ ਆ ਕੇ ਸਿੰਗਾਪੁਰ ਮਲੇਸ਼ੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਸਿੱਖਸ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਹੈਟਸ ਆਫ ਜਿੰਨੀ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਸੰਭਾਲੀ ਆ ਵੰਡਰਫੁਲ ਜੌਬ ਪੰਜਵੀਂ ਛੇਵੀਂ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਮੂਵ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਤੇ there are a lot of lessons we can learn from them. Yes, you're right, ठीक है डंडे नाल ही सिखाई सारी सीखी है and now we are facing the Y generation. And same thing in England as well. Maybe the 40s the example we didn't want to be recognized as Pakis, so we decided nahi apan pagdi pani nahi because we are Sikhs, otherwise we are called Pakis. I'm not disagreeing to what you're saying, but there are examples to be Punjabi ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜ ਕੇ ਵੀ Kenyan Sikhs ਨੇ, Malaysian Sikhs ਨੇ, Singaporean Sikhs ਨੇ, and they can still Sikhi ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਚੰਗੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸੰਭਾਲਿਆ ਤੇ ਨਿਭਾਇਆ.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, I hope I'm not trying to present a very bleak image of Sikhi that we're all lost and everything is wrong, right? Yes, we are not here if it wasn't for the great work of all of our ancestors. Our forget ancestors, just the previous generation. Like, I remember one of the best things I ever heard, an uncle that we greatly respect, does a lot of seva in the UK, a lot of work to raise awareness for Sikhs. He says, you younger generation, he says, you like to complain about us older generation. Yeah, you love to complain about us. He says, all of you get together, try and build one Gurudwara. And that really put me in my place. He said, try and build one Gurudwara. And then I realized what they have done. Hundreds of Gurudwara they managed to build. We cannot even begin to say how much we're indebted to the previous generations. But the challenge of today is different. And we cannot get lazy either. New challenges, look, it takes years to build a bridge, it takes seconds to destroy one. It takes years to build Sikhi as we have today. It could take 1 or 2 generations and it's gone. So I'm not trying to present a bleak picture of Sikhi that it's all lost, but let's be honest about where stuff needs very quick, rapid change.
The rate of decline is much faster now.
Could be. What I'm saying is the rate of decline, the Sikhi that we have today might need rapid change. And that rapid change may need to come from us redefining what we think our Sikhi is. Because parents come up to me and say, I can't get my kids to do Japji Sahib. We've been doing Japji Sahib since we were kids. And we just did it every single day. Our parents started every day with a Mooji. They're very proudly saying it. I can't get my kids to do it. They just don't listen. My question to them is, do you understand what Japji Sahib says? No. But we do it every day. Unfortunately, the next generation will not care that you've done it for 20 years. Because they can just take a picture and put it on Instagram. They're not afraid of us. They have a whole world within which to get ideas and information from.
It's becoming a ritual, Gurdwara becoming like a business.
Right. What are we going to do?
Forget about their soul, they have a soul.
The soul. What are you going to do to find that within yourself?
It's a lifelong
practice it, do it.
Practice.
Yeah, talk about it in a different way. learned that Sikhi is not, when we were, I don't know if you got it here, we used to have a really funny comedy sketch in the UK called Goodness Gracious Me. And the young man says, Dad, what is the nature of the universe? Why am I a Sikh? What is the purpose? What is the meaning of life? He said, son, you take a cup, you take a saucer, you put the cup on the saucer, cup of tea. You take a man, you put a turban, you got a Sikh. That was it. And that kind of generalized and satirized the whole situation, right? You put a turban on a man, you got a Sikh, right? Is that our definition of Sikhi, or do we need a better understanding of what Guru Nanak wanted us to do in life?
And the thing about it is, like, we have become a generation where, Anupat Karnawa, shall we contact Hazur Sahib, Amritsar? Kitran Anupat hoega, ਅਸੀਂ ਆ ਜਾਾਂਗੇ. All they will say, ਕੋਈ ਨਾ, ਸਾਡੇ ਤਾਂ ਕੀਤੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ.
It's booked. Done.
Anupat ਕੀਤੇ ਆ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕਰ ਦਾਂਗੇ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆ ਜਾਓ.
What did Guru Nanak come to eradicate? That exact system. So the problem goes right back, right to the heart of it. Now again, some people will argue, hey, there's a lot of Shakti and power that comes from doing a kind part. Fine, I'm not questioning that. I'm not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. My role today is to just raise questions, to ask you, hey, should we do something else? What is the consequences of what we're doing? Maybe we should be doing something different. It's a very complex question all of a sudden. Yeah? I had an interview just before, and we just had, the lady was asking me on the interview just before, she said, what are you going to talk about today? I said, do we need religion? She said, what is it, yes or no? She said, that's a great question, yes or no?
Here's a question.
So what do we do?
So I'm a person that likes answers as well. So maybe just going back and reflecting on where we started, and if you don't mind if I ask you a question.
Yeah, please.
Why, and I'll be interested to hear the answer, why are you a Sikh? If we reflect on where we started the discussion. And then if I elaborate a bit further, then what tools do we need as parents? How do we educate ourselves? Because to build a bridge, you've got some instructions, right? You've got some engineering principles that you use to build a bridge. We also need to understand what the principles are on how we lay the foundation for our kids and how to get the kids on board. Because you referred to a few points that we need to understand ourselves, which I fully acknowledge. But we also need to teach ourselves as well, one way or another.
Yeah.
I don't think we do that very well, especially maybe in the Western side of things. And it's very hard. We go to the Gurdwara, we hear Qatar, we don't understand a lot of the words that are used because they're quite complicated.
Yeah.
Maybe our parents will try to explain it to us, but it doesn't really well for me anyway.
Yeah.
So how can we define some steps that we need to take to get there and help our kids? Because I've got young kids and I want them to be on the right path, and I want to use those 12, 13 years as effectively as possible.
Yeah. Brilliant couple of questions. And my answer is going to show that they're actually related. The first question was, why am I a Sikh? I'm a Sikh because my understanding of Sikhi is that it is the most effective tool in giving me what I ultimately want in life. Ultimately, every human being is looking for one thing only, something very simple. What are we all looking for? Happiness. The way we try to find happiness has generally been defined by society. Happiness equals you get a good job, you get a good education, you get a good house, you get some money, you get this, it's material success. And like it or not, Sikhs are materially pretty successful. Yeah, good, go for it, shabash. Nobody tells you not to be a king. But the world, and what's interesting about the world right now, is the whole world has realized that material wealth hasn't worked. And as soon as they realized that, mental illness went through the roof. It's not a coincidence that technology has rapidly increased so much in the last couple of years, and then all of a sudden, the mental illness has also increased. All of a sudden, people are realizing this isn't working. And we are in a beautiful position right now. The whole world is saying, we want mental wellness, well-being. We want good mental health. Mindfulness, meditation is through the roof. Everybody and their dog is meditating and talking about mindfulness these days. What my question is that why aren't the Sikhs realizing that we have the king of mindfulness and meditation? We don't know that. Why don't we understand that we come from the place where we were told that the king of all spiritual wisdom sits in the house of Guru Nanak? Let me contextualize this for you and then I'll answer your question. The Mughal invasion, Aurangzeb's invasion of India. You know, we love to tell this story of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Shahidi. A whole bunch of Kashmiri Pandits went to Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji and said, somebody's trying to kill us, can you sort it out? Nobody seems to realize, why did the Kashmiri Pandits go to Guru Tegh Bahadur? Let me elaborate for you. The way it works all over the world, and especially in India, they said, become a Muslim or we're going to chop your head off. Common village folk said, we don't know, we just do what our elders tell us to do. So they go to the village priest and they say, become a Muslim or we're going to chop your head off. They say, look, we just do what our central kind of leaders tell us to do. And like this, it went back and back and back, and it went back to the highest spiritual people of India. And they said, who is the highest spiritual master? We want to know who it is. They said, we're going to go to Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, because it was accepted in India at that time that the height of spiritual wisdom in India stopped at Guru Nanak's house. Raj Jog Takht Diyan Guru Ramdas. That the Raja of yoga, of all spiritual traditions, is Guru Ramdas. That's not just made up, that was actually what was going on at the time. That's why we come from the tradition that we have the king of mindfulness and meditation in Guru Granth Sahib. Why don't we know that? So the reason I am a Sikh is because I don't let society tell me the method of happiness. Because the Guru has given me the best method of happiness. And I'm only a Sikh because it works. It's awesome. It's amazing. When I read Gurbani, when I do Naam Simran, and I'm not saying it works all the time because I'm an average Joe, and a lot of the time you sit and you meditate, it's like, oh, it's not working, it's a bit hard, whatever. But Guruji's ability to help you deal with day-to-day life and get past it all and transcend it all. Look, why were the Gurus and the Bhagats, well not so much the Bhagats, but the Gurus and the Gursikhs and all the Shaheeds, why were they able to stand there and say, please chop my head off, I'm having a great day, you're not going to be able to touch what I have. They had something that said, Sir Jave Ta Jave. You can take my head, but you cannot take this. We have Gurbani that talks about, I found something that the thief cannot steal, water cannot drown, fire cannot burn. Yeah, we have shabads like Taskar Nahi Leve and all these sorts of things, right? It cannot be burned, it cannot be stolen, it cannot be destroyed. I have that. That's what the Gurus are saying. I have that. That's what the Bhagats, the Brahmgyanis are saying. Even the Bhagats, I believe there's a Shabad by Bhagat Ravidas Ji that says you can cut me up from limb, and you will not be able to take what I have. This is what we have. So in answer to the second half of your question, what we're supposed to do, I think externally, as a Sikh community, we've done amazing things. We've built the best buildings, we've created the greatest charities, langar systems, we are fair, we are loyal. The best comment that every single one of you would ever receive is, oh yeah, I know a Sikh, great people, very reliable people, honest people. We've done all that great stuff. We've built great houses, but maybe we need to furnish that house with something of more substance on the inside. And I'm not saying that Sikhs are kache on the inside, they're empty on the inside. I'm not saying that. But we've got a lot more to go to get anywhere close to the stuff that the Guru is talking about. So in answer to your second question, what we need to do, the reality is we need to study Gurbani individually, ourselves. And you cannot be afraid of the Guru anymore. You can download the Guru on your phone in the language of your choice. We cannot keep the Guru locked away in the Gurdwara. We have to have a relationship with the Guru, because this Guru has the key to unlock the greatest superhuman powers that the world has ever known, the greatest happiness that the world has ever known. You know, I read in these newspapers and you see online articles, scientists have found the happiest man alive. Who is the happiest man alive? Who are these people? Normally, they say scientists have done brain scans on these Buddhist monks, and they've scientifically proven that they're the happiest man alive. And while I have nothing against the Buddhist tradition, and their stuff is amazing, and what they have to offer the man and mankind is amazing, in reality, I look at that and I say, give him a wife and kids. Give him a job. Give him a mortgage. Then come and tell me he's the happiest man alive. Guru Nanak Dev Ji did that, all of that, didn't he? Guru Nanak Dev Ji was welcomed by all the spiritual tribes. And they said, come, you don't need to have worldly stuff. Come, join us. You can be sitting here in the greatest meditative mind, amongst the greatest meditative minds. And he said, yeah, but the whole world is burning, and the only people that can save the world are sitting up in a mountain meditating. What are you going to do for them? He said, I'm going to show them within the Maya that they live in, I'm going to show them that it's possible. We have something phenomenal. We don't even know what we have. We don't even know how to talk about what we have. So the answer to the question is why I do it, because it works. It's awesome. I'm not saying I've done it all, but what I have experienced, Guruji, hats off to you. Excuse the pun. Right? It's amazing. And when we can crack what Gurbani is saying, the whole world will be lining up. But we have to do it. We have to be it, we have to be there, we have to do it, try it, test it. We have to read Gurbani. We have to do Naam. We have to unlock this treasure. The treasure is there, except we've kind of covered it up and we do jar of it. And I'm not saying don't do that, but it's an idol if you're not going to read it. Read Gurbani, study it, learn it. Go and fall in love with your Guru. Have a relationship with your Guru. Nobody in here should be afraid to have access to Gurbani, to read Gurbani. Nobody should feel I don't understand the language, it's too complicated, it's all that kind of stuff. And if it is too complicated, I hope you can appreciate why organizations like ours exist, to try and bridge that gap in whatever little way that we can. And we're not perfect and we don't do it all right, but I believe that we have something amazing, and the only thing that's going to stop us is not systems and structures and all this kind of stuff in place. My vision for our organization is I want to radically change the Sikhs' impressions of what Sikhi is, so that the Sikhs know what they have is out of this world. I think we're at a good place to stop. Hopefully that's given you some inspiration. Hopefully that's given you a reason to come back tomorrow, where we will be picking up on a very interesting idea about what is Guru Nanak's message for the world.